in London. A respected British scientist has admitted that emails taken from his inbox calling into question many of the accepted truths of global warming were genuine. The documents appear to show scientists are holding back or ignoring evidence. One even suggested using a trick to hide a trend of falling temperatures. The revelations came just weeks ahead of an international summit on climate change to be held in the Danish capital, Copenhagen. Well, Phil Jones from the University of East Anglia is reportedly under pressure to quit after the emails were published, but says he stands by his research, indicating the planet is heating up. Well, let's get more on this. I'm joined live by Alexei Kokorin. He's a weather programme coordinator for the World Wildlife Fund in Russia, and also Piers Corbyn in London. Mr. Corbyn's an independent weather forecaster. Now, first of all, to you, Mr. Kokorin, what do you make of the claims a respected scientist referred to a trick he used to hide the fact that the world's temperature is not increasing?
Yeah, so do you ask me, sorry?
Yes, Mr. Kokorin, can you hear me? Can you hear me there in Moscow?
Yes.
I'm asking you, the news that the scientist we've been referring to in our reports here, he actually used a trick to hide the fact that the world's temperature is not increasing. What do you make of these revelations?
Yes, I was in a group of authors of fourth assessment report, and I know that some people, some my co-authors, tried to demonstrate temperature growth in most visible style, more dramatic, more catastrophic than even in reality. Therefore, I'm not surprised. It's not crucial news for me that somebody wanted to present temperature growth as more dramatic than reality. But it's absolutely nothing from point of view of anthropogenic climate change, because temperature is just a symptom of illness. The main reason is CO2 concentration, anthropogenic increase of CO2 concentration. It's completely proven.
All right,
therefore, temperature is just a symptom.
Just before we go to Mr. Corbyn, then, what evidence can you tell us about the situation in Russia? What tells you that there is climate change going on, and what adverse effects is it having? Give us some tangible examples, please.
Yes, situation in Russia is that Russian scientists, leading scientists, have no doubts that climate change is mainly anthropogenic increase of greenhouse gas effect. I especially take the special report prepared by Russian Academy of Science and Russian Meteorological Service. This report has even special chapter compared anthropogenic impact and solar impact, all other factors, clearly proving that current climate change is unfortunately anthropogenic.
Okay, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there just for the moment, because we'll turn to our guest now in London. Mr. Corbyn, evidence from our guest here in Moscow that climate change is indeed occurring. What's your response as an independent weather forecaster?
Well, he's talking complete nonsense. The data, real data, over the last 1,000, 10,000 or million years shows there's no relationship between carbon dioxide and world temperatures or climate extremes. And now we can see that actually the people in charge of the data have been fiddling it. And they've been hiding the real decline in world temperatures in an attempt to keep their so-called moral high ground.
All right,
the whole moral case is blown to smithereens, and this whole theory should be destroyed and discarded, and the Copenhagen conference should be closed.
Well, so how do you explain the very evidence that here I am sitting in Moscow, there's no snow when there should be, we're talking about the Arctic Sea warming up, allowing more navigation for vessels, we're talking about and reporting about floods all over the world. How do you explain this latest phenomena in the climate?
Well, in terms of the floods recently all over the world, these were predicted by us at weatheraction.com, long-range forecasters, using solar activity. If you take a proper look at data over a long period of time, you see, for example, there's been no increase in hurricanes hitting the USA corresponding to anything to do with CO2 in the last 100 years. So their claims are false. I repeat, they are false. And this theory they've got is like the Titanic, and it will crash. And I would suggest that honest green campaigners who want to preserve biodiversity or whatever should get off this bandwagon before it sinks.
Mr. Corcoran, what do you...
for real green issues where it's needed.
All right, thanks, Mr. Corbyn. Mr. Corcoran, what do you think? All your views are a complete waste of time. You should jump off this bandwagon. This is a big blow to environmentalists, is it not?
Yes, of course. And speaking about origin of climate change, Of course, many people repeat that thousands and millions years ago we had the same temperature, thousands years ago. But in history of human society, we never had such CO2 concentration as we have now. This is the main reason. And we have very clear studies of isotopic analysis and correlation analysis, that we have CO2 growth first, temperature later on. In the past, it was vice versa. But currently, last 20 years, we have certainly CO2 first, temperature second, not vice versa. This is the main argument which people just miss, because they just measure temperature. They have to take care about CO2 concentration and clear correlation and isotopic analysis, what is a sort of miracle of current science.
All right, Mr. Corcoran.
It is very, very precise analysis.
You're making a very clear case, Mr. Corbyn. It's very clear what he has to say there. How do you respond to these answers?
Well, it's complete nonsense. If you look at data, if anything, carbon dioxide levels are driven by temperatures, not the other way round. There have been big peaks in CO2 in the past, and there's been CO2 levels much higher than present, as shown in geological evidence. Carbon dioxide is actually a good thing for the world. More CO2 means plants and agriculture is more efficient and plants grow faster. We should be campaigning for more CO2, not less, and we should end this anti-scientific nonsense now.
What's your view about alternative energy then? Do you think more energy and resources should be going into that?
Sure. Well, there are some alternative energy schemes which are good, but wind farms, for example, are stupid, because for every wind farm you need to have a coal-fired power station to provide provide power when there's no wind.
So who's profiting from all of this, Mr.
Some
Corbyn?
alternatives are good.
But if the scientists are cooking the books, then just tell us exactly why they are doing this and who is profiting from it then.
Well, look, you have to ask them and who pays them. But there is a gigantic bandwagon run by governments primarily who want to control world energy supplies and hold back development in the third world. Let's be clear. The West, or the leading world, wants to stay ahead, and they're doing anything they can to stay ahead. And this thing they're doing now is just the same as the banking crisis. It's creating a whole bubble of false value.
So you're saying that over 100
people will pay.
You're saying over 190 countries are meeting very shortly in Copenhagen to discuss this, to continue with the Kyoto Protocol, and it's going to be a much wider measure because fewer countries were involved in the Kyoto Protocol. Many more countries are now involved in this next initiative. You're actually saying that it's a complete waste of time.
Yes, they're a complete waste of time.
All right, let's hear what
money they waste there should be used to combat malaria, for example, or a whole lot of things.
Well, wait a minute. Malaria could be as a result of increase in global temperatures, could it not?
That is nonsense. Anyone in Russia knows that malaria has happened in Russia in the past. It's not anything to do with warming, and in fact now the world is cooling. You understand that? The world is cooling and has been cooling for 7 years, and the leading scientists, so-called scientists, have been trying to hide that evidence.
Mr. Corcoran, the Copenhagen summit is a waste of time. What do you think? Mr. Corbyn says it's a complete waste of time. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you ask me about Copenhagen
yes.
or about climate effects?
Let's talk about the Copenhagen summit. Many people are flying all over the world at great expense, and they're going to be meeting over 190 representatives from all the countries in the world, from those countries are going to be meeting in Copenhagen, and Mr. Corbyn says it's a waste of time.
No, it's not waste of time, not at all. Yes, it's very reasonable to very seriously discuss economic and financial tools to solve the problem. And they should not discover the wheel, or we should not do some miracle, because they have very clear, very visible effects. I cannot judge about England, but I can say my opponent that in Russia he is absolutely wrong. Malaria never happened in Russia before. Now it is. Encephalitis was only in Siberia.
Oh, come on, that is such a lie. That is such a lie.
Where you was in Russia last time?
You know that is a lie.
I live here.
I've heard Russian scientists.
Are you doctor or meteorologist?
Say, I've heard Russian scientists and the Russian
scientists
say how when they were children they knew about malaria.
Please read this report. Please read scientific articles.
Oh, come on,
if you are
I've
very
read it.
independent or a trusted, you shouldn't be a doctor.
Lies and cover up.
I'm just going to interrupt here. Just
could I ask you, are you medical doctor? or meteorologist?
Okay, Mr.
Are you medical
I'm an
doctor or
astrophysicist.
meteorologist?
Fascinating
long-range
debate.
weather forecaster.
I just want one final
Please
brief
do not
reaction
be so
from you.
naive.
Mr.
What
Cochran,
did you
please.
Speak about
What
Russia.
is
Gentlemen, can you
which
hear
will
me?
never visit.
Well, I don't
Who
think I'm going to get
pays
much
you?
further with this.
Come on, who pays you?
All right, we'll just end, please. One final statement from you both, very brief. Finally from London, Mr. Corbyn, just briefly.
Yes, the
Yes, my
Copenhagen
statement and
Jamboree
only...
is...
Okay.
Oh, who do you
Okay,
want
well, I
first?
think we'll leave it there because obviously it's very difficult for us
Well,
to communicate
it's a
between Moscow and
jamboree
London anyway without actually
and a
seeing each other.
scandal, and
But-
it must be stopped.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Corbyn. Fascinating to hear what you have to say.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Corcoran, a great discussion. Thanks for joining us live here on RT. Thank you.